Welcome back to the Independent Republican Mike Graham right here on Talk TV. I was off last week, and of course there were quite a few things that happened while I was off. One of them being the breaking of the Russel Brand story, which has been running ever since, basically. Dispatches did a show on Saturday night, a week ago Saturday, in which he was accused of all manner of things which he refutes. He has said so in the past as well. Meanwhile, he's had all sorts of accounts on YouTube and elsewhere demonetised, so he can't make any money. He's left with Rumble at the moment, but even Rumble, which is a place where supposedly free speech means you can pretty much say anything, even Rumble are starting to suffer a little bit because some advertisers have pulled their advertising from Rumble in some kind of dispute with them over what Russel Brand is accused of doing. There's been some news stories this morning, front page of The Sun, saying that the cops are now probing sex assault allegations against Russel Brand, which are from the past, non-recent allegations they're called. He's had plenty to say about it. Let's see what he had to say last night on Rumble.
Today, of course, we're talking about events of the last week, but in particular, the collusion between big tech and government and an apparent concerted effort by legacy media and now the state and big tech to silence independent media voices. Obviously, it's difficult for me to be entirely objective given the events of the last week, but that is what we must try to do.
Now, you might argue that Russel Brand would say that, wouldn't he? Let's talk to Mark Borowski, PR expert, of course, guru to the stars. Mark, a very good morning to you.
Hi, Mike.
I was quite pleased that I wasn't here last week, to be honest, because there's a little feeding frenzy that was going on with Russel Brand and his entire entourage, and people who were in favour of him, people who were against him. It seems to have settled down a little bit now, but is anybody really buying this legacy media shtick that he's putting out now, where he's not really addressing many of the actual cases other than to refute them, and he's simply saying that this is a massive conspiracy against him?
I think there's two definitive camps. If you think about the combined reach of Channel 4 and the Sunday Times who broke that story, was eclipsed by Russel Brand's channels. I mean, I did a sort of a quick calculation. He's got over 40 million people following him.
Yeah.
And so that is a significant cult. So I think what we're seeing here is a division between his cult members, those sort of people who believe what he posits, against perhaps people who are looking at the lurid headlines and some of the brave testimonies of many of the women, one could argue, that clearly present another picture. So I think it is division between those who still trust legacy media, mainstream media, for want of a better word, for those are the people who actually go to channels like Rumble and some of the unregulated channels to get their information.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been stretching for 4 years. And, you know, he has built up a significant following. He talks about things a certain audience, you know, want to know more about that they feel is ignored by traditional media. And if that is the case, then clearly this trial by social media is quite significant in dividing those who are with him and those who are against him.
Yeah. I wonder if it all tells us more about the media landscape now than anything, really, because whether you believe the stories about him or not, it would certainly seem, I mean, he's admitted to being, as he says, as he puts it, extremely promiscuous in his past, and he obviously will have done things on camera that people have seen and said things on camera that people have seen. But I wonder whether this tells you that the media kind of has fragmented in a way which nobody really saw happening.
Well, look, I mean, Mike, if you know, you as a broadcaster are governed by the rules of Ofcom, newspapers have to be very careful in the way that they report, because if not, they'll have IPSO, the press regulator, on their back. Many of these channels are completely free to posit whatever theory they choose to posit. And these can be outlandish. They're not governed by the same rules, so therefore there is a definitive dividing line between the unregulated and the regulated. And I think this is what it's all about. And of course, people now want to go to a place where they can actually hear things that they want that reflect their views. And he's been very divisive in terms of he's switching, if you remember, his left-leaning point of view on that channel called The Truths, you know, and we're judging behaviour, which was wrong. you know, from a lens that goes back to maybe 10, 15 years ago. And of course, it's about star power as well, which has always governed these issues. But a lot of people are, you know, feeling really quite fired up by this. And while there is something, and you're right, it isn't as intense as it was last week, and these things tend to sort of evaporate slowly, but this story isn't going to go away. And as he's broadcasting on the channel, and he needs untraditional media, he needs these channels to drive income, to generate money. And so therefore, as much clickbait that he can generate, and I saw his broadcast really over the weekend, which was very much like a cult leader. And everything about him at the moment is actually playing, and he's very eloquent, he's very charismatic. And when you've got those skills, you're going to stir up the crowd.
Yeah. And also, it doesn't help those who might want to wonder whether there is some kind of conspiracy against him, when certainly he lumps in big tech as well. So YouTube have demonetised his channel, even though they're still carrying the videos. You can't make any money out of it. So Rumble really is like the only place left, because I saw Elon Musk put out a tweet over the weekend saying how disappointed he was that Russel Brand seems to be only now promoting Rumble, because Elon Musk has been quite supportive of his case and of his ability to continue to broadcast, regardless of what these allegations are.
Well, he's gone to where the money is. He clearly has made a commercial decision about, you know, and I think he's got, you know, sponsorship from Rumble. I think he was paid allegedly by Rumble to promote their channel. So therefore, he's got to go where the money was. And at the same time, he is in danger of losing connection with other people who have shown to grow some sort of support. But rolling big tech into this is all part of the scheme, I would assume, to sort of generate as much support that he needs. But I feel, you know, really quite empathetic with the women who probably might find it very difficult to launch a legal case against him, because a very good KC, if that is the case, he wants to, you know, take him on in a court, it's going to be very difficult to do that, because we're seeing this level. Now, I know that there's reports this morning about other, you know, women coming forward. We don't know what that means. He is still standing by his original position that he's not guilty. So we are in this process of watching somebody being tried by me, which isn't helpful.
Well, no, I suppose the difference this morning is that there is now a police investigation, which they've confirmed. So, you know, if that comes to nothing, then it will be, I presume, open season for him to carry on and say that, you know, they tried and failed to silence me. But at the end of the day as well, you've also got the Attorney General making bizarre noises about how, you know, any coverage of this story might in fact be in contempt of court, when there isn't even a court case.
Well, this is the sort of weird Kafkaesque times we find ourselves in, between the global audience, the power of huge channels, aggregating, you know, huge amounts of content relating to this. You know, as I say, going back to figures that exist in mainstream media, they're tiny compared to how some of these people operate and take control of their channels. So therefore, where is the balance? So sometimes it feels like, you know, the legal profession, a bit like Canute, you know, trying to stop the waves, because something out there is happening and it's a change. And until we regulate, until we find some regulation of these sort of channels, then it's going to be very difficult. And of course, you know, those people seeking libertarian freedom, you know, think the last place that needs to be regulated is the internet. And maybe that is the case, because the genie is out of the bottle and has been out of the bottle for some time.
No, exactly right. Jenny in Oxford, I just want to tell you here, makes the point that, you know, all of the things that he did and said on television, which we've now seen and have been sort of used as illustrations, shall we say, of some of the crudities that he would come out with, presumably were all subject to Ofcom rules at the time and didn't breach them.
Well, you know, what was happening on television, what was happening in his private life and off screen is without doubt something that was pretty disturbing. And we have seen right way through the years. I mean, I wrote a book on a famous Hollywood publicist, called the Favour formula. And I studied the way that the people in power, the publicists, the studio heads, people like Howard Strickland, actually suppressed stories. When the studio system was so powerful, they had control over their stars. And the biggest Hollywood stars in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, you never knew this sort of depth. You didn't know. There was a thing called the Hays Code that passed to stop this. There was a commission to try and stop the activities that were going beyond the pale. So it's always existed that people who have power and exercise that power because of their celebrity are sometimes allowed to get away with things. Now, I'm not suggesting this is the case in terms of this, but it points in the direction that whether it's Weinstein or we're seeing through Savile or whatever, things, and this was the name of the program, in plain sight. Yeah. That's clearly the issue here that a lot of people are now having to face. Those sort of people who commissioned it, who controlled it on the likes of BBC and Channel 4 are looking at themselves, and suppose independent inquiries are happening at the moment. It's a complex world, but the power of celebrity, I think, is rapidly changing, because it's clear now that you can't behave and get away with it and throw it away as a joke of bad behaviour or boasting about it. The Sun called him Shagger of the Year. So attitudes work right at that time. And this is the culmination of it now, where getting the Sunday Times did a remarkable job, so did Channel 4, and getting a story away 4 years. That takes, and that's what people don't seem to understand, of just how long it takes to get past out of a story such as this, because you're pitted against people with enormous power, with lawyers and professionals helping them.
No, indeed. Good to talk to you, Mark. We've got to go, I'm afraid. We're out of time. Mark Borowski there, PR expert on the latest from the house of Russell Brand and what is going on with Russell Brand. But the story rumbles on.